Jake Morrison pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship and watched the massive space station grow larger ahead of them. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his breathing steady. 3 years of training had taught him to control his fear. 3 years of learning to become someone else. The bio-suit covering his entire body felt strange against his skin. It was made from alien technology that the human scientists had stolen and rebuilt. The suit changed how he looked, how he smelled, even how his voice sounded. To everyone around him, Jake Morrison no longer existed. He was now Kethver, a middle-level officer in the Xanthari military. The Xanthari were tall, thin aliens with gray skin and large black eyes. They had been fighting humans for almost 10 years now. Jake had studied their language, their customs, their way of thinking. He had practiced being one of them until he could do it without thinking. The transport ship slightly as it connected to the docking bay of the space station. Jake picked up his small bag and joined the line of aliens, waiting to get off the ship. He moved like they moved, stood like they stood. No one looked at him twice. Station Nexus 7 was huge. Jake had seen pictures of it during his briefings, but seeing it in person was different. The walls were made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Long corridors stretched in every direction. Thousands of aliens from dozens of different species walked through the halls. Jake saw the insect-like Vexhi clicking their claws as they talked to each other. Their voices sounded like metal scraping against metal. The Vekmori looked like walking crystals with light pulsing through their bodies in different colors. The Nitharon were harder to see because they were made of gas and had to wear special suits to keep their bodies together. All of these species had one thing in common. They all wanted to kill every human in the galaxy. Jake walked slowly through the main corridor, listening to conversations around him. His enhanced hearing device picked up words in different alien languages. The computer in his suit translated them into English in real time. "The humans are spreading too fast," said a Vexhi officer to his companion. "Their ships are getting better," replied another alien. "They learn from every battle." "Something must be done before they become too strong," added a third voice. Jake kept walking, but his mind was working fast. The aliens were scared. That was good news for humanity, but it also meant they were planning something big. He reached the check-in area where a large Xanthari officer sat behind a desk. The officer looked up at Jake with those big black eyes that all Xanthari had. "Name and purpose," the officer said in the Xanthari language. "Kethver, tactical analyst from the Outer Rim Defense Force," Jake replied smoothly. "I am here for the Strategic Planning Conference." The officer checked his computer screen. "Room 847, Level 12. You have been assigned to attend Session Block 7. Report to Conference Hall 3, tomorrow at 0800 hours. Jake took the electronic keycard and bowed slightly in the Xanthari way. "Thank you, Commander." As he walked toward the elevators, Jake thought about his mission. Earth's military leaders needed to know what the aliens were planning. For months, human colonies had been disappearing without any sign of battle. Ships would arrive to find empty planets with no trace of what had happened to the people. The elevator was crowded with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Jake stood quietly in the corner, trying to blend in. A group of Vekmori were talking about something called biological solutions. A Vexhi mentioned final phase protocols. None of it sounded good. Level 12 was quieter than the main floors. The corridors here were lined with doors leading to sleeping quarters for the conference attendees. Jake found room 847 and used his key card to open the door. The room was small and basic, just like military quarters everywhere. A narrow bed, a small desk, and a closet. Jake set his bag on the bed and activated a small device that would scan the room for listening equipment. The device found 3 hidden microphones and 1 camera. That was normal for a place like this. Jake sat at the desk and opened his bag. Inside were clothes, personal items, and some electronic equipment that looked like normal Xanthari gear. Hidden in the false bottom of the bag were his real tools. A quantum communicator that could send messages to Earth without being detected. Recording devices so small they could not be seen. and a few other items that might save his life if things went wrong. He activated the communicator and sent a quick message to his handlers back on Earth. Package delivered, beginning primary mission tomorrow. Will report in 24 hours. The reply came back quickly. Understood. Be careful, Jake. You are our only eyes and ears in there. Jake turned off the communicator and hit it again. He had work to do. Tonight he would study the conference schedule and plan his approach. Tomorrow he would begin the most dangerous mission of his life. He pulled out a datapad that contained his conference materials. The schedule showed dozens of sessions over the next 5 days. Topics included advanced weapon systems, psychological warfare techniques, and population control methods. Then Jake saw something that made his blood run cold. Session Block 7, the one he was assigned to attend, was titled Terminal Solutions, Comprehensive Human Elimination Protocols. They were not just planning another attack. They were planning to wipe out every human being in the galaxy. Jake stared at the screen for a long moment, then closed the datapad. He had been sent here to gather intelligence about alien military plans. Now he realized he might be the only person who could warn humanity about what was coming. He looked out the small window in his room. In the distance he could see other ships arriving at the station. More aliens coming to attend the conference. More enemies gathering to plan humanity's destruction. Jake had always known this mission would be dangerous. Now he understood it might be the most important mission in human history. If he failed, if he was discovered, if he could not get this information back to Earth, then humanity might not survive. But Jake Morrison had not come this far to fail now. He had spent 3 years becoming the perfect spy. He had learned to think like an alien, act like an alien, even smell like an alien. Tomorrow, he would sit in a room full of humanity's greatest enemies and listen to them plan genocide, and then he would make sure they regretted ever underestimating the human race. Jake lay down on the narrow bed and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would be the beginning of the most important 5 days of his life. He needed to be ready. Outside his window, the space station continued its slow rotation among the stars. Thousands of aliens slept in their quarters, dreaming of the day when humans would be nothing but a memory. They had no idea that humanity's most dangerous weapon was sleeping just down the hall from them. Jake Morrison was ready for war. Jake woke up early the next morning. He had not slept well. Every time he closed his eyes, he thought about the conference title he had seen, Terminal Solutions. The aliens were planning to kill every human in the galaxy. He put on his Xanthari uniform and checked his appearance in the mirror. The biosuit made him look exactly like one of them. Gray skin, black eyes, thin body. Even his parents would not recognize him now. Jake hid his recording devices in his uniform pockets. They were so small that even if someone searched him, they would look like normal uniform buttons. He activated his memory enhancement system. Everything he saw and heard today would be recorded perfectly in his mind. The dining hall was crowded with aliens eating breakfast. Jake got in line with the others and took a tray of food. The Xanthari ate a gray paste that tasted like metal. Jake had learned to eat it without showing disgust on his face. He sat at a table with other Xanthari officers. They were talking about the conference sessions they would attend today. Jake listened carefully while pretending to eat. I heard the Vexi have developed something new, said one officer. Something that attacks the human brain directly. The Vekmori claim they can break human will in just a few hours, added another. They have been testing it on prisoners. Jake's hand tightened around his eating tool, but he kept his face calm. These aliens were talking about torturing humans like it was just another job. After breakfast, Jake walked to Conference Hall 3. The hall was enormous, with seats for over 200 aliens. A large screen hung at the front of the room. Jake found his assigned seat and sat down. The hall filled quickly. Jake had never seen so many different alien species in one place. There were creatures he did not recognize, things that looked like they came from nightmares. All of them were here to learn how to kill humans better. A massive reptilian alien walked onto the stage. She was twice as tall as a human, with scales that looked like armor and eyes like yellow fire. This was General Kixthara, the most feared military commander in the alien alliance. "Welcome, warriors of the Convergence Council," she said in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. "Today we begin the final phase of our war against the human infection." The audience made sounds of approval. Clicking from the Vexhi, humming from the Vekmori, hissing from other species. Jake felt sick but kept his face blank. "Our first presenter today is Dr. Jektar of the Vexhi Science Division," General Kixthara continued. "He will show U.S.'s latest weapon." A insect-like alien clicked onto the stage. His body was covered in hard black shell, and his eyes were like dark jewels. He touched a control device, and the large screen came alive with images. "Fellow hunters," Dr. Jektar began, his voice like metal scraping against stone. "I present to you the neural disruption pathogen. This weapon attacks the human nervous system directly." The screen showed a human brain, then tiny organisms moving through it like worms. Jake watched in horror as the brain tissue began to die. "The pathogen is delivered through the air," Dr. Jektar explained. "Humans breathe it in without knowing. Within 6 hours, they lose the ability to think. Within 12 hours, they enter a permanent catatonic state. Within 24 hours, they are dead." The audience made excited sounds. Jake forced himself to stay calm while his mind raced. This weapon could kill millions of humans before anyone knew what was happening. "How many humans can one deployment kill?" asked an alien in the audience. "One aerosol bomb can contaminate an area 50 kilometers wide," Dr. Jektar replied. "That is enough to eliminate a major human city." Jake activated one of his recording devices. This information had to get back to Earth. Human scientists needed to know about this weapon so they could develop a defense. Dr. Jektar continued his presentation for another 20 minutes. He showed test results, deployment methods, and production timelines. Jake memorized every detail while trying to look like just another interested alien officer. The next presenter was Commander Velenov of the Vekmori. She looked like a walking crystal sculpture, with light pulsing through her body in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Psychological warfare has always been effective against humans," she began. "But we have developed new methods that are far more efficient." The screen showed videos of human prisoners in cells. Jake recognized some of the faces. They were soldiers who had been reported missing in action over the past year. "Humans have strong emotional bonds with their family members," Commander Velenov explained. "We can use this weakness against them." The screen showed a human woman being tortured while her husband was forced to watch. The man broke down completely, begging the aliens to stop. Jake's hands clenched into fists under the table. "When we capture human military personnel, we also capture their families," Commander Velenov continued. "The soldiers will do anything to protect their loved ones. They will give us information, sabotage their own forces, even kill their own leaders." Jake thought about his own family back on Earth, his parents, his sister, his nephew. The aliens would use them against him without hesitation if they knew who he really was. "We have also discovered that humans will surrender entire colonies to save just a few prisoners," Commander Velenov added. "Their emotional weakness makes them predictable." The presentation continued with more examples of psychological torture. Jake recorded everything while fighting to keep his expression neutral. These aliens were not just enemies, they were monsters. The final presenter was the worst of all. The Netheran called the Whisperer floated onto the stage in his environmental suit. His voice came from speakers built into the suit, and it sounded like wind through a graveyard. "Fellow hunters," the Whisperer began, "I present to you the Cascade Protocol, the final solution to the human problem." The screen showed a map of the galaxy with all the human colonies marked in red. There were hundreds of them scattered across dozens of star systems. "The Cascade Protocol will eliminate all human presence in the galaxy simultaneously," the Whisperer explained. "No warnings, no time to escape, no survivors." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. This was worse than anything he had imagined. "Phase 1 involves the deployment of the neural pathogen to all major human population centers," the Whisperer continued. Phase 2 uses gravitational weapons to destroy human space stations and orbital facilities. Phase 3 deploys hunter-killer fleets to eliminate any remaining human ships. The screen showed simulations of entire human worlds dying. Cities went dark, space stations exploded, fleets of ships were destroyed in seconds. The entire operation will take 72 hours, the Whisperer said. After that, humans will exist only in our history files. The audience erupted in sounds of approval. Aliens stood up, making their species versions of cheers and applause. Jake sat frozen in his seat, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was hearing. "When will the Cascade Protocol begin?" asked an alien in the front row. "The final preparations are already underway," the Whisperer replied. "Deployment will begin in 30 standard days." 30 days. Jake had 30 days to warn humanity about the greatest threat it had ever faced. The session ended with General Kixthara taking the stage again. "Tomorrow we will discuss deployment logistics and target priorities," she announced. "Rest well, warriors. Soon the galaxy will be cleansed of the human infection." The aliens began filing out of the hall, talking excitedly about what they had learned. Jake stood up slowly, his mind racing. He had to get this information to Earth immediately, but as he walked toward the exit, he noticed something that made his heart stop. A security officer was scanning the crowd with a handheld device. The officer was checking for unauthorized transmissions. Looking for spies, Jake realized that his mission had just become much more dangerous. He was trapped on a space station full of aliens who wanted to commit genocide, and they were starting to look for people exactly like him. He had the information. Humanity needed to survive, but now he had to figure out how to get it home alive. Jake walked back to his room as calmly as he could. His heart was pounding, but he kept his face blank like a real Xanthari officer. Other aliens passed him in the corridor, still talking excitedly about the presentations they had just heard. Inside his room, Jake immediately activated his scanning device. The 3 microphones and 1 camera were still there, but now there was something new. A small transmitter hidden behind the air vent. Someone was watching him more closely than before. Jake sat at his desk and pretended to review conference materials while his mind raced. He needed to send the information about the Cascade Protocol to Earth immediately, but the new transmitter meant that any communication would be detected instantly. He waited 2 hours, acting like a bored officer, reading reports. Then he stood up and walked to the small bathroom. The scanning device had shown that the bathroom was the only place in the room without surveillance equipment. Jake pulled out his quantum communicator and quickly typed a message. "Priority Alpha. Alien Coalition planning total genocide. Cascade. Protocol begins in 30 days. 3-phase attack, neuropathogen, gravitational weapons, hunter fleets. Need immediate evacuation of all colonies." He pressed the send button and held his breath. The communicator showed that the message was transmitting through quantum channels that should be impossible for the aliens to detect. After 30 seconds, it showed "message sent." Jake quickly hid the communicator again and returned to his desk. He had done it. Earth would know what was coming, but 15 minutes later, red lights began flashing in his room. An alarm was sounding throughout the station. Jake heard heavy footsteps in the corridor outside his door. Someone knocked on his door. "Security inspection," said a voice in the Xanthari language. "All personnel must submit to scanning." Jake opened the door. 3 aliens stood outside. 2 were Xanthari security officers with weapons. The third was something he had never seen before. It looked like a metal spider with glowing red eyes and multiple mechanical arms. "Routine check," said one of the Xanthari officers. "There has been unauthorized communication detected from this sector." The spider-like alien clicked into Jake's room and began scanning everything with its red eyes. Jake stood perfectly still, trying to look annoyed but not worried. "I was reviewing tomorrow's session materials," Jake said. "Is there a problem?" "Someone on this level sent an illegal transmission," the first officer replied. "We are checking all rooms." The spider alien made clicking sounds as it scanned. Its eyes glowed brighter when it examined Jake's bag, his desk, and the area around his bed. Jake's enhanced hearing picked up the alien's mechanical voice as it reported to the officers. "No unauthorized devices detected in this room." The spider. Alien announced, "Subject appears clean." Jake breathed a silent sigh of relief. His quantum communicator used technology that even advanced alien scanners could not detect. "Thank you for your cooperation," the security officer said. "Attend tomorrow's sessions as scheduled." After they left, Jake sat on his bed and tried to calm down. The message had been sent, but now security was actively looking for spies. He would have to be even more careful. The next morning, Jake went to the dining hall for breakfast. The atmosphere was different now. Security officers stood at every entrance, scanning aliens as they entered. There were more guards in the corridors, and everyone seemed nervous. Jake sat at his usual table with other Zentari officers. They were talking about the security alert from the night before. "I heard they found evidence of human infiltration," one officer said quietly. "Impossible," replied another. "How could a human get past our security?" "Maybe they have better technology than we thought," suggested a third officer. Jake ate his gray paste and listened. The aliens were scared. They knew someone was watching them, but they did not know who. After breakfast, Jake walked to Conference Hall 3 for the second day of sessions. The hall was more heavily guarded than before. Security officers stood at every entrance and scanning. Devices swept the crowd continuously. Jake found his seat and waited for the presentations to begin. Today's topic was implementation and logistics. The aliens were going to explain exactly how they would carry out their genocide plan, but before the first presenter could begin, there was a commotion at the back of the hall. Security officers were escorting someone to the stage. Jake turned to look and felt his blood freeze. The person being escorted was human. She was a woman about 30 years old, with brown hair and tired eyes. She wore a simple gray uniform that looked like a prisoner's outfit. The aliens had brought a human to their conference about killing humans. General Kixthara walked onto the stage. "Warriors of the Convergence Council," she announced, "I present to you Dr. Nira Volt, former human scientist. She will help us understand our enemy better." Jake recognized the name. Dr. Nira Volt had been one of Earth's leading experts on alien technology. Her research station had been attacked 6 months ago, and she had been presumed dead. Dr. Volt walked to the center of the stage. Her movements were strange, like she was sleepwalking. When she spoke, her voice was flat and emotionless. "I am Dr. Nira Volt," she said. "I have been studying human weaknesses for our alien allies. I will share what I have learned." Jake realized with horror that the aliens had not just captured Dr. Volt. They had broken her mind and turned her into a collaborator. "Humans are driven by hope," Dr. Volt continued. "Even when facing certain death, they believe they can find a way to survive. This makes them fight harder, but it also makes them predictable." The alien audience listened carefully as Dr. Volt explained human psychology, human military tactics, and human technology. Everything she said would help the aliens kill more humans more efficiently. "Human leaders will sacrifice themselves to save their people," Dr. Volt explained. "If you threaten a human colony, the military commanders will come to defend it, even if it is obviously a trap." Jake watched in disgust as Dr. Volt betrayed her own species. But then he noticed something. When she talked about human hope and sacrifice, her eyes flickered slightly. Deep inside, some part of her was still fighting. "Humans also have strong family bonds," Dr. Volt continued. "They can be controlled by threatening their loved ones. A human soldier will obey any order if his family is held hostage." As she spoke, Dr. Volt's eyes found Jake in the audience. For just a moment, her gaze lingered on him. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Did she recognize him somehow? The presentation continued for an hour. Dr. Volt answered questions from the alien audience about human behavior, human technology, and human military strategy. Every answer made Jake more angry and more afraid. When the presentation ended, Dr. Volt was escorted off the stage by security officers. But as she walked past Jake's section, she stumbled slightly. A small piece of paper fell from her hand and landed near Jake's feet. Jake waited until the aliens around him were distracted, then quickly picked up the paper. It was folded very small, and there was writing on it in human language. "They are testing weapons on humans in Lab Section 7. The note said, "Level 15 behind the restricted access doors. Help them if you can. Some of us are still fighting." Jake's heart began racing again. Dr. Volt was not completely broken. She was still trying to help humanity, even while being forced to work for the aliens, but the note also told him something terrible. There were other human prisoners on the station, and the aliens were using them as test subjects for their weapons. Jake looked around the conference hall. Hundreds of aliens were discussing the best ways to kill humans. Security officers were scanning the crowd for spies. Somewhere in this station, human prisoners were being tortured and killed. Jake Morrison had come here to gather intelligence. Now he realized his mission had changed. He was not just a spy anymore. He was the only hope those prisoners had. The aliens had made a mistake when they brought Dr. Volt to their conference. They thought they had broken her completely, but they were wrong. She was still fighting, and now she had given Jake the information he needed. Jake folded the note carefully and hid it in his uniform. Tonight, when the station was quiet, he would find Lab Section 7. He would see what the aliens were doing to human prisoners, and then he would decide whether he was going to complete his mission or start a war. Jake waited until midnight before making his move. The station was quieter now, but security patrols still walked the corridors every 20 minutes. He had timed them carefully during the day. He slipped out of his room wearing his full Zentari uniform. If anyone stopped him, he would say he was going to the medical bay for sleep medication. Many aliens had trouble sleeping on space stations. Level 15 was 3 floors below his quarters. Jake took the service elevator that maintenance workers used. It was slower than the main elevators, but there were no security cameras inside. The corridor on level 15 was dimly lit and lined with metal doors. Most of them had standard access panels, but at the far end Jake could see the restricted area Dr. Volt had mentioned. Heavy doors with red warning lights and additional security locks. Jake approached carefully, staying in the shadows. His enhanced hearing picked up sounds from behind the doors. Mechanical humming, computer beeps, and something else that made his stomach turn. Human voices, weak and full of pain. He pulled out a small device from his hidden equipment. It was designed to override alien security systems, but it would take time to work. Jake attached it to the door's control panel and waited. While the device worked, Jake heard footsteps approaching. He quickly hid behind a support beam as 2 Vexi guards clicked past. They were talking about the next day's weapon tests. "The neural pathogen is ready for the final trial," one guard said. "How many test subjects do we have left?" asked the other. 12 humans in good condition. The others are too damaged to provide useful data." Jake clenched his fists. The aliens were talking about human beings like they were laboratory equipment. After the guards passed, Jake's device beeped softly. The door lock had been cracked. Jake carefully opened the heavy door and stepped inside. The laboratory was a nightmare. The walls were lined with glass cells, each one containing a human prisoner. Some were unconscious, connected to alien medical equipment. Others were awake, staring at nothing with empty eyes. Jake moved from cell to cell, looking at the prisoners. He recognized some faces from wanted posters and military records. These were soldiers, scientists, and colonists who had been captured during alien raids. In the 5th cell, Jake found someone he knew personally. Captain Lisa Barnes had been his commanding officer during his first year of military service. She was connected to several machines that seemed to be monitoring her brain activity. Lisa's eyes were open, but she did not seem to see anything. A small screen next to her cell showed data about something called Neural Pattern Disruption Test. 47. Jake activated his recording devices and began documenting everything he saw. The human prisoners, the alien equipment, the test results displayed on computer screens. Earth scientists would need this information to understand what the aliens were doing, but recording was not enough. These people needed help now. Jake found the main computer terminal and began accessing the laboratory systems. His training in alien technology helped him navigate the complex interfaces. He discovered files containing test results, prisoner medical records, and schedules for future experiments. The files revealed that the aliens had been testing their neural pathogen on human prisoners for months. They had tried different doses, different delivery methods, and different combinations with other weapons. The results were horrifying. Most prisoners died within hours of exposure. Those who survived were left in permanent catatonic states, aware but unable to move or speak. The aliens considered this a successful outcome because it would terrorize other humans more than simple death. Jake also found something else in the computer files: the locations of other alien facilities where human prisoners were being held. There were dozens of them scattered across the galaxy, each one conducting different types of experiments. As Jake copied the files to his hidden storage device, he heard voices approaching the laboratory. He quickly finished the download and moved to hide behind a bank of equipment. 3 aliens entered the lab. 2 were HFY scientists, and the third was a Xanthari security officer. They were discussing the next day's tests. "The neural pathogen is ready for deployment testing," said one of the HFY. "We will use the human prisoners to simulate field conditions." "How many subjects will be exposed?" asked the security officer. "All of them," replied the second HFY. "We need to test the pathogen's effectiveness on different human genetic types." Jake realized that all the prisoners in the laboratory were going to be killed tomorrow. Unless he did something to stop it, the aliens moved to a different section of the lab, giving Jake a chance to act. He accessed the laboratory's life support systems and began making subtle changes. If he could create a controlled atmospheric disturbance, he might be able to incapacitate the alien guards without harming the human prisoners. Jake also accessed the laboratory's communication systems. He found that he could send a signal directly to the station's emergency broadcast network. If he timed it right, he could transmit all the intelligence data he had gathered directly to Earth. But there was a problem. Any major system override would trigger security alerts throughout the station. Jake would have minutes at most before. Alien security forces surrounded the laboratory. He looked at the human prisoners in their cells. Captain Barnes, the other soldiers, the scientists who had been captured trying to help their people. They were depending on him. Jake made his decision. He activated the atmospheric controls first, flooding the laboratory with a gas that would make the aliens unconscious but would not harm humans. The HFY and Xanthari in the lab collapsed. Within seconds, then Jake began opening the prisoner cells. Most of the humans were too weak to move, but a few were still conscious enough to understand what was happening. "Who are you?" whispered a young woman who had been imprisoned in one of the cells. "Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Forces," Jake replied as he helped her stand. "We are getting out of here." Captain Barnes was still connected to the alien medical equipment. Jake carefully disconnected the cables and monitors, hoping he was not causing any permanent damage. Lisa's eyes focused on him for the first time. "Jake?" she said weakly. "Is that really you?" "Yes, Captain. I'm getting you out of here." "How many ships did you bring?" Lisa asked. "Just me, Captain, but Earth knows what is happening now." Jake helped the conscious prisoners move toward the laboratory exit while security alarms began sounding throughout the station. His atmospheric disturbance had been detected and alien security forces were responding. "Can you walk?" Jake asked Captain Barnes. "I think so," she replied, though she was clearly very weak. Jake activated his emergency communicator and began transmitting all the intelligence data he had gathered. The information about the Cascade Protocol, the neural pathogen, the prisoner experiments, and the locations of other alien facilities all streamed toward Earth through quantum channels. "Transmission in progress," his communicator reported. "Estimated completion time, 4 minutes." Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside the laboratory. The aliens had found them. "There are weapons in the security locker," Captain Barnes said, pointing to a cabinet near the entrance. Jake broke open the locker and found several alien energy weapons. He distributed them to the prisoners who were strong enough to fight. "We need to hold this position for 4 more minutes," Jake told them. "Earth needs this information." The laboratory door exploded inward as alien security forces prepared to storm their position. Jake and the rescued prisoners took cover behind laboratory equipment and prepared for battle. "Remember," Jake called out to the other humans, "we are not just fighting for our lives. We are fighting for every human being in the galaxy." The first alien soldiers appeared in the doorway, and the battle began. Energy blasts filled the laboratory as alien soldiers poured through the doorway. Jake and the rescued prisoners fired back from behind overturned tables and equipment racks. The air crackled with weapon fire and the smell of burning metal. "Keep them back," Jake shouted over the noise. 3 more minutes." Captain Barnes, despite her weakness, had taken position behind a computer console and was firing steadily at the attacking aliens. The other prisoners fought with desperate courage, knowing this might be their only chance at freedom. A HFY soldier tried to rush their position but was cut down by energy fire. 2 Xanthari guards took cover behind the doorway and began laying down covering fire for their advancing troops. Jake's communicator showed the transmission was 60% complete. The intelligence about the Cascade Protocol was still flowing to Earth, through quantum channels that the aliens could not block. "Jake," Captain Barnes called out. "More troops coming from the left corridor." Jake turned to see a squad of heavily armored Thekmori soldiers approaching from a side entrance. Their crystal bodies pulsed with angry red light as they fired powerful energy weapons. "Sarah, Tom, cover the left side," Jake ordered 2 of the rescued prisoners. They moved quickly to block the new threat. An explosion shook the laboratory as alien forces tried to break through their defenses. Equipment crashed to the floor and sparks flew from damaged systems. One of the prisoners cried out as energy fire grazed his arm. 80% complete, Jake's communicator announced. Jake realized they were running out of ammunition and defensive positions. The aliens were bringing more troops every minute, while the humans had nowhere to retreat. Then Captain Barnes had an idea. "Jake, can you access the station's emergency systems from here?" she asked while firing at an advancing alien. "Maybe. Why?" "If we trigger the station's emergency beacon, it will broadcast on all frequencies. Can you piggyback our transmission on that signal?" Jake understood immediately. The emergency beacon was designed to be unstoppable, broadcasting distress signals that could reach across the galaxy. If he could attach their intelligence data to that signal, every human outpost and resistance cell would receive it instantly. "Cover me!" Jake shouted as he ran to the main computer terminal. Energy blasts scorched the air around him as he worked frantically at the alien keyboard. The station's emergency systems were heavily protected, but Jake's training in alien technology helped him break through the security barriers. 95% complete, his communicator reported. Jake found the emergency beacon controls and began reprogramming them. Instead of broadcasting a simple distress call, the beacon would now transmit every piece of intelligence data he had gathered about the alien genocide plan. "Beacon activated," the computer announced in the alien language. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the entire station. Red lights flashed in every corridor as the emergency beacon began its galaxy-wide broadcast. The signal was so powerful that it could not be stopped or blocked by any known technology. "Transmission complete," Jake's communicator announced. All data successfully transmitted. But the battle was far from over. More alien soldiers were pouring into the laboratory, and Jake's small group was almost out of ammunition. "We need to get to the escape pods," Captain Barnes said. "This station will be crawling with troops in minutes." Jake grabbed his remaining equipment and helped the weaker prisoners move toward the laboratory's emergency exit. The corridor beyond was filled with smoke and the sound of running feet as aliens rushed to respond to the emergency beacon. The group moved carefully through the station's service corridors, avoiding the main routes where alien security forces were concentrating. Jake used his knowledge of the station's layout to guide them toward the nearest escape pod bay, but as they reached level 8, they ran into a patrol of 6 Xanthari soldiers. The aliens raised their weapons, but Jake was faster. His energy weapon dropped two of them before they could fire. Captain Barnes and the other prisoners eliminated the rest in a brief, fierce firefight. "Pod Bay is just ahead," Jake said. Checking his scanner for more enemies. They reached the escape pod bay to find it heavily guarded. At least 20 alien soldiers were positioned around the launch tubes, clearly expecting them to try this route. "Too many," whispered Captain Barnes. "We need another way out." Jake looked at the tactical situation. The aliens had superior numbers and better positions. But humans had something the aliens did not understand: the willingness to sacrifice everything. "For others, I have an idea," Jake said. "But you are not going to like it." He explained his plan quickly. Jake would create a distraction by attacking the guard post from the front, drawing their fire and attention. While the aliens focused on him, the prisoners would circle around and reach the escape pods from the other side. "That is suicide," Captain Barnes protested. "You will never survive that many enemies." "Maybe not," Jake replied. "But the intelligence data is already transmitted. Earth knows what is coming. Your job now is to get back and help prepare the defense." "Jake, no, we can find another way. There is no time, Captain. Every minute we wait here, the aliens are preparing their genocide. Those people in the pods are Earth's best hope for understanding alien technology and tactics." Jake checked his weapons one last time. He had enough ammunition for maybe 2 minutes of fighting. After that, he would have to rely on hand-to-hand combat skills and luck. "Give me 60 seconds, then make your move," Jake told the group. "Do not stop for anything. Get to Earth and warn everyone." Before Captain Barnes could protest again, Jake stepped into the open and began firing at the alien guard post. The aliens were surprised by his sudden attack. Several fell before they could take cover. But then the entire guard force turned their weapons on Jake's position. Energy blasts filled the air around him as Jake dove behind a support pillar. He fired back steadily, picking off aliens who exposed themselves. But there were too many of them, and they were closing in from multiple directions. Jake heard the sound of escape pods launching behind him. Captain Barnes and the other prisoners had made it. His distraction had worked out in energy. Blast caught Jake in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending him to the ground. Pain shot through his body, but he kept firing. A HFY soldier rushed his position, and Jake dropped it with his last energy cell. Out of ammunition, Jake drew the combat knife from his belt. If he was going to die here, he would die fighting, but then he heard a new sound. Explosions echoing through the station's hull. The roar of human engines and the distinctive whine of Earth military weapons. A rescue fleet had arrived. Jake's emergency beacon had not just transmitted intelligence data to Earth, it had also revealed his location, and Earth's military had sent ships to extract him. Human Marines blasted through the pod bay walls, their powered armor gleaming under the station's lights. The alien guards turned to face this new threat, giving Jake a chance to take cover. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison?" called out a Marine sergeant. "We are here to get you out, sir." The battle in the pod bay was brief but intense. The human Marines, equipped with the latest Earth technology, quickly overwhelmed the alien defenders. Within minutes, the area was secure. "Sir, we need to leave." "Immediately," the sergeant told Jake as a medic treated his wounded shoulder. "This station is about to be hit by a full strike force." Jake was carried to a rescue ship just as the station's defenses began firing at the approaching human fleet. He watched through a small window as Earth's warships returned fire, their weapons tearing into the alien structure. "Did the intelligence data get through?" Jake asked the ship's captain. "Every bit of it, sir. Earth Command has already begun implementing countermeasures against the neural pathogen. Colony evacuation orders have been sent to all human settlements. And our scientists are working on defenses against the gravitational weapons." Jake closed his eyes and let himself relax for the first time in days. The mission was complete. Humanity knew what was coming and had time to prepare. "What about the Cascade Protocol?" Jake asked. "Cancelled, sir." When the aliens realized their plans had been compromised, they postponed the operation indefinitely. They are too afraid of walking into A trap. As the rescue ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying Jake back toward Earth, he thought about the conference he had attended. The aliens had held a seminar on killing humans. Never realizing that a human was there taking notes, they had learned too late that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake they could make. Jake Morrison had gone to that station as a spy. He was returning as the man who had saved the human race.